Wait, did you just proc Flawless Execution from neutral? Yes. Yes, I did. So to understand how this interaction is working on Prism, let's take a step back and look at how it originally worked on Void. Defeating a weakened, suppressed, or volatile target grants invisibility and true sight. And you could do this a number of ways. You could do this with Suppressor Nade, you could do this with a weakened fragment, you could do this with smoke, with tether, etc. Then we also have Thread Runner. This has Thread of Isolation. Landing rapid precision hits emits a severing burst from the target, and defeating a severed target unwinds them into a tangle, which then you can grapple onto, grab, throw it, and grapple onto it again, therefore saving a grapple. This same interaction works on Prism, except from any elemental debuff. This is all of the light debuffs that you can read on the right, all of the darkness debuffs. But in this case, we're concerned with Sever. Facet of Solitude is not the same as Thread of Isolation. The calculations to trigger the Tangle are entirely different on Prism and entirely different on Strand. Some weapons overlap, but for the most part, look at the example right now. We have a 600 RPM auto rifle with no magazine boost. I believe the magazine size versus the RPM and archetype of the weapon all matter. So watch. All headshots. I'm going to switch to controller here. Now we're going to use a Suros regime without spinning up. This is dual speed receiver. Still no proc. Now I'm going to switch it to spinning up. Still a 600 RPM auto rifle, but this perk will allow it to achieve a slightly faster rate of fire, which does proc the perk. So now I have a tangle and I'm invis from a neutral state. So on screen now is going to be a list of weapons that work and weapons that do not work with this interaction. Some interesting ones to note are the BXR Battler not working. Let me make sure I put on full auto fire here. That matters with some of these Fringe cases. You have to achieve the maximum RPM possible. So the BXR Battler does not work, but interestingly, Bad Juju does. Now, I'm not sure 100%, but the difference between these two is the magazine size. So that's what leads me to believe the magazine has to do with this. Another Fringe case is Revision 0. This has two different firing modes similar to Suros. When I equip it, you see I have 20 bullets. However, it is not consistent. It does not proc every time, even if I'm using the full auto trigger. Did not proc. Did not proc. And did not proc. That's 3 in a row. I've done this like 10 times, and maybe 1 out of 10 times it made him invis in a private match. Just know that when you're in a real game, this perk works between multiple targets. So if I hit a headshot on one, and then 3-tap the next, I will proc the perk 100% of the time. The next obvious one to test is the last word. And you do have to basically full auto. It has very little leniency for proccing the perk. I'm on controller, by the way. I have to pull down ever so slightly on the stick if I'm on a hill. Didn't work there. So I really have to full auto it. It worked on that one. Next up is the rest of the hand cannons. If you're going to use a 120 RPM hand cannon, I recommend keeping the magazine 7 or lower if that is even possible. I suspect that drop mag on older hand cannons does influence the magazine, if not in-game, under the hood. And this is just like Revision 0, where I can shoot the character 10 different kills and it might not proc. In this case, it did, but it is not consistent, and I could shoot it another 10 times and not have it proc. Next up is Thorn and Hawkmoon, which are 9 around 140 RPM. If you can get the magazine to 8, it's going to be extremely consistent, but for now, I would say these are very consistent. So I suspect Thorn is more consistent because of the extra poison ticks. And I'm very happy that Hawkmoon works, because otherwise you would have to have a non-catalyst version of Hawkmoon. And then finally, this brings us to the most consistent option of all, Luna's Howl. Shout out to when I said that I don't like the Onslaught version of Luna's Howl, the Into the Light version. It was overrated because the recoil pattern and lack of Zen moment just made no sense for aiming on mouse and keyboard, and now I have yet another reason to use the curated version. It is the most consistent way to proc this in the entire game. So yeah, you're probably going to see this weapon glued to my character for the foreseeable future, unless they nerf this Fragment at some point. And even then, I'm going to run the Fragment anyway. It's a staple because multi-kills happen and drawn-out gunfights happen where you're shooting multiple opponents as they dip in and out of cover, and you're going to proc it eventually by accident. Some more fringe cases are bows. With explosive head, you could proc it on a quick 2-tap. Let's do Crimson versus Warden's Law next. You would think that Warden's Law would proc the perk, but as you can see, even at full auto, it does not. Crimson, on the other hand, Crimson is extremely consistent. It's up there with Thorn. When it comes to sidearms and SMGs, pretty much any SMG will work, but only the lightweight and rapid-fire sidearms work. With pulse rifles, it is only the rapid-fire frames and some fringe options like Bad Juju. For scout rifles, I believe most of the rapid-fire frames work, but if you wanted to pull one out of collections right now, Touch of Malice will get the job done. The next fringe case is Devil's Ruin. At base, it will never proc the perk, but with the laser, it always will. Finally, let's talk Tommy's Matchbook. You technically can proc it if you spin it up, but the thing about Tommy's Matchbook is it creates Scorch for spinning up. And if you're scorching your target anyway, you'll proc Stylus Executioner anyway, which means that you don't even have to worry about this fragment if you're using Tommy's Matchbook. So, food for thought, you can just aim at the body, and you can still get your invis. I think I killed that a little bit too early there, but the same idea. I hope you learned something new in this video and have some inspiration for how you're going to build your own Prism Hunter. I'll see y'all in the next. Thanks for watching.